Hello, everyone. Good to see you today. Today we are in Acts chapter 23. It is still AD 60 for the date. Now, today I was reminded of grace. Apostle Paul was showed great grace by God. God had his back. God kept him alive. Okay, up to this point, the Jewish people, or I should say, the Jewish leaders have always tried to kill Paul, and they never could. And the Jewish leaders never did kill Paul. God always protected him. Apostle Paul did die by the hands of the Romans, but not by the hands of the Jews. So that reminded me of grace. And us believers, us born-agains, without grace, we would be sunk. We would be on our way to spend eternity in hell without grace. And I'm reminded of that today, reading about Apostle Paul and the grace that God showed him. He also, that same grace he shows to us. And to me, it's very exciting that God would think of me enough to love me and want me to be with him forever. That's grace, because it's nothing that I did. It's nothing that I did to merit that. And it's the same way with the YouTube videos. I don't have the background, the technical background in computers and editing and all that stuff. I don't have that. I don't have the background in speaking or reading, but yet God called me to just read the Bible. That's all I ever wanted to do was read the Bible to you. So that's what I'm doing, and God has shown me grace because of it, and I thank him for that. So today when you're thinking, or you're praying, or you're meditating, or however you come before God, remember, God has shown you great grace. Okay, let's begin. We're in Acts chapter 23. Now you all know that Paul is gonna he's brought before the council, the Jewish council, and now he's gonna address them. Paul, looking intently at the council, said, "Brethren, I have lived my life with a perfectly good conscience before God up to this day." The high priest Ananias commanded those standing beside him to strike him in the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Do you sit to try me according to the law, and in violation of the law order me to be struck?" But the bystanders said to him, "Do you revile God's high priest?" Paul said, "I was not aware, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it is written, 'You shall not speak evil of the ruler of the people.'" But perceiving that the group were Sadducees and the others were Pharisees, Paul began crying out to the council, "Brethren, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. I am on trial for the hope and resurrection of the dead." Now, the Pharisees believed in the resurrection of the dead, and the Sadducees didn't. So there was a rift there between the two. As he said this, there occurred a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor a spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. Well, I would have been a Pharisee then, because I acknowledge them all. And there occurred a great uproar, and some of the scribes of the Pharisaic party stood up and began to argue, heartily saying, "We find nothing wrong with this man. Suppose a spirit or angel had spoken to him." And as a great dissension was developed, the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them and ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him back to the barracks. So this isn't working out at all. You know, the commander knows he's a Roman, and he wasn't going to have a Roman torn apart by the Jews. But on the night immediately following, the Lord stood at his side and said, "Take courage, for as you have solemnly witnessed to my cause at Jerusalem, so you must witness at Rome also." Now, this is incredible. Jesus stood at his side and encouraged Paul. He told him, "Look, you're going to Rome. You're not going to be killed. You're going to Rome." When it was day, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who formed this plot. They came to the chief priests and the elders and said, "We have bound ourselves under a solemn oath to taste nothing until we have killed Paul. Now therefore, you and the council notify the commander to bring him down to you, as though you are going to determine his case by a more thorough investigation. And we, for our part, are ready to slay him before he comes near the place." But the son of Paul's sister heard of their ambush, and he came and entered the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Lead this young man to the commander, for he has something to report to him." So he took him and led him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to lead this young man to you, since he has something to tell you." The commander took him by the hand and stepped aside, began to inquire of him privately, "What is it that you have to report to me?" And he said, "The Jews agreed to ask you to bring Paul down tomorrow to the council, as though they were going to inquire somewhat more thoroughly about him. So you do not listen to them, for more than 40 of them are lying in wait for him, who have bound themselves under a curse not to eat or drink until they slay him. Now they are ready and waiting for the promise from you." So the commander let the young man go, instructing him, "Tell no one that you have notified me of these things." And he called him 2 of the centurions and said, "Get 200 soldiers ready by the 3rd hour of the night." I suppose that would be like 9 o'clock at night. By the 3rd hour of night, to proceed to Caesarea with 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen. There were also provided mounts to put Paul and to bring him safely to Felix, the governor. And he wrote a letter having this form: "Claudius Lystrus, to the most excellent governor Felix, greetings. When this man was arrested by the Jews and was about to be slain by them, I came up to them with the troops and rescued him, having learned that he was a Roman. And wanting to ascertain the charge of which they were accusing him, I brought him down to their council. And I found him to be accused over questions about their law, but under no accusation deserving death or imprisonment. When I was informed that there would be a plot against the man, I sent him to you at once, also instructing his accusers to bring charges against him before you. So the soldiers, in accordance with their orders, took Paul and brought him by night to Artapacus, I guess. But the next day, leaving the horsemen to go with him, they returned to the barracks. When these had come to Caesarea and delivered the letter to the governor, they also presented Paul to him. When he had read it, he asked from what province he was, and when he learned that he was from Cilicia, he said, I will give you a hearing after your accusers arrive also, giving orders for him to be kept in Herod's pictorium. I guess that would be Herod's house. Okay, so there you go. That concludes chapter 23. God bless you. You all have a good day.